Hi, everybody. Today we're going to update our device description template. So on my screen, I'm actually showing our device description for Medical Device Academy. If you go to the hyperlink that's going to be provided in the video down below, that description of the video has a hyperlink taking you to our web page for the device description. You fill out a little form, just email in your name, and you can download our template. So you don't have to send me an email. You don't have to pay for anything. You just put in your name and your email and then download it. So that will help you out if you are interested in working with us, or you're doing your own pre-sub, or you're doing your own 510K, or you just are working against me as a competitor and, hey, you want to know how I do it, go right ahead. Type in your email, your phone, email and name, download our template for the device description. And now I'm going to explain how to fill this in. So every single one of our clients that is starting out with this, you should watch this video and pay attention, because I'm going to show you how to fill this in, and you're going to have to do some editing of the template as we go through, because I put in more information here than you need. You delete the stuff that you don't need. Okay? So you might have to watch it a couple times, and you don't have to do it all yourself. Delegate things to other people on your team, sort of spread the pain a little bit. And things that you don't know how to do, this is a Word template, so you can go into Word and just add a comment and ask the question, and we'll try to help you. But you got to give us something to work with here, because we don't know what your device is. We didn't design it for you. We need you to tell us what your device is, so we can tell you how it would be regulated and what kind of testing you need to do to get it to market. So here we go. And we've taken a lot of what we already had, and we've changed up the order a little bit, and so hopefully this helps you. So the first part at the very beginning here, I'm showing you something. There's nothing for you to type, but I'm showing you why you have to do this. This is an absolute requirement. You can't skip the device description. It's because even in the pre-submission, they have a place here that says add attachment, and there's a little red bar next to it. Anything that has a red bar is a required mandatory field in the eSTAR or the pre-STAR. So the eSTAR or the pre-STAR will not validate, will not compile, will not say green complete on the top, and you won't be able to submit. So if you can't upload it, you can't submit it because it's not complete, you're stuck. So you have to create something to attach there. And the FDA is going to reject your submission if you have an empty page. So don't just attach an empty Word document to get it done, or a PDF to get it done. Fill this template in. It's free. So once you have created yours, you can delete this little screen capture I'm showing on the top of the page here. So this little screen capture, you can delete it. You don't need it. It's just to explain to you and your boss why you shall do this. You need to do it. The next thing, the trade name or list of devices. Before we called it like product trade name, and I'm trying to clarify this here. Your trade name for your device, it's not always the same as your company name. So companies have a corporate brand identity, and then they have product lines, product brands. If you have one company and one product, well, they might be the same. But if you're a little bit bigger company or have aims to grow someday, you might separate your brand identity for your product from your company brand name. Just a suggestion. That's a lot of how branding of products is done, is rather than creating a line extension and diluting that brand and have it be harder to position in people's minds, they create a new brand so they can create a new position in people's minds. Just an idea, a little basics 101 on how to do brand identity. In the pre-sub, so I'm showing you screen captures here of the pre-STAR. They have a heading here that says listing of products, and you can add as many products as you have. So people are like, but I only have one product. Well, if you have a suture and you have 10 different sizes, like 10 different diameters or 10 different lengths, or 5 different lengths and 2 different diameters, which is a total of 10, well, you can list each one of those. Sometimes people run out of space and they list a range. That's also okay. But you have to list the devices in the product ranges, and they have to match up with your instruction for use or user manual and your labels. and you have to justify for each test which of your list of products you tested and why you chose that one for that test. What's the worst case? Is it the smallest? Is it the largest? So list of products is required. Can you change that between your pre-STAR and your 510K? Absolutely. But it's helpful to have a list, particularly when you're discussing testing plans. So don't skip that part. And before I had that in a different section, and people are like, but it's duplicating what's up above. No, I've moved them together now under one heading, trade name and list of devices. So you have your trade name and your list of devices. If you were really super lazy, you could fill in the pre-STAR and then just do a screen capture, so you don't have to do typing twice. So that would be a way of doing it, because you're going to have to put it into the pre-STAR no matter what. And now that Adobe has fixed most of their bugs in working with the FDA on these pre-STAR and eSTAR templates, you should be able to take your pre-STAR information, export it to an XML file, and import it into your eSTAR, so you don't have to retype everything. And I have tested it. It is working now. The next section is the general description section. So this general description section is a text box in the pre-STAR and in the eSTAR. It should also be the same thing that's in your 510K summary as the beginning paragraph, description of device. It should be the same thing that's in your instruction for use or user manual or directions for use that says description of the device or general description, whatever title you use there. It's usually a little text box or a paragraph, or maybe a couple of paragraphs if you have a complex device with multiple components. But you would explain it here, and I give you a little bit of the information that's behind the scenes in the help button if you check out that. But there's a JavaScript window you can click on and get more information. And then I actually have a YouTube video on it. And then we actually show a screen capture here of the text box. So the information in your device description should match what's in that text box. Otherwise, they'll say you're inconsistent. And people are like, but it duplicates. But yes, they use these for different purposes. So they don't want to have to keep on going back to the eSTAR to look it up. So just whatever you wrote in your device description as the general description of the device, copy and paste that into your user manual, copy and paste it into this text box. Do not make any edits. So it's exactly the same. That way it'll be very easy for them to say, oh yeah, it's the same because you copied and pasted. Okay. Next section is indication for use. And everybody says, but this is already in other places. Yes, it is. They want to make sure you're consistent across the board. So you have to have a device description with the indication for use. And that same thing should be in your 510K summary, and the same thing should be in your user manual. So make sure it's the same by copying and pasting. And they don't actually have FDA Form 3881 anymore. They've actually deleted that form number from the eSTAR and the pre-STAR, but it looks pretty much the same. Here it is right here on the screen. So it just doesn't say FDA Form 3881 anymore. And if you have a submission number, that'll show up in the pre-STAR, eSTAR, but that doesn't matter for this section of the device description. You don't have to put the trade name in again. What you need is what's in this text box goes under that heading, and you should indicate whether it's prescription use or over the counter. So you could use a little text box, you could use a symbol, you could say it in words, whichever. But if your indications are not identical to a predicate, so this is assuming you're doing a 510K, then you have to justify the differences in your 510K summary, and that information goes in right in this little text box. You do not need that information in your device description. You need it in your substantial equivalence comparison, and you need it in the eSTAR. I just put it here so when you're writing your indication for use, keep in mind what you want may not be what you get because you're trying to go down the 510K pathway and you need it to be identical to the predicate or really, really close because you have to justify the differences. Okay, next, intended patient population, intended users, and conditions for use. Those three elements are part of your use specification in a usability engineering file. So if you don't know what a usability engineering file is and you've never heard of a use specification, you need to go out and purchase IEC 62366-1. It is a requirement for all electromedical devices. It's required for most software because they want you to do human factors testing. If you have a really simple device like examination gloves, surgical gloves, a needle, syringe, something that everybody knows how to use, surgical mask, you might be able to get away with not specifying who the intended user is, the conditions of use environment, or the intended patient population. You might. It's not a guarantee. You might. But this is where you put in things like it's for adults, it's for children, it's for tall people, it's for short people, it's for obese people, it's for people that are type 1 diabetics. And you want to be a little bit careful about specifying things in here that are going to make it hard for you to be without clinical data or hard for you to show that it's substantially equivalent. And I just realized a little thing I got to edit out of the template here. So I still had in here some references to the old RTA checklist. RTA stood for Refusal to Accept, that no longer exists because the eSTAR does all the checking for you. It's a validated PDF template. So if you don't put the right thing in there, it should automatically flag it as a red item or give you an error and it won't compile properly. So we don't need the RTA checklist anymore. They do a technical review to see if you answered questions correctly. Like if you said, this is not a powered device, but they can see it has a display screen and runs software, you probably answered that question incorrectly. So that's the technical review kind of thing that they're doing. But these three questions or three headings are intended patient population, intended user, and condition for use. We're not writing books here. We're not even writing paragraphs. It could be a sentence. I'll give you examples for each one. For intended patient population, type 1 diabetics, type 2 diabetics, people with mobility issues, infants requiring intubation, short stuff, a sentence, a phrase, really short. And the more specific you are to a disease or condition, the more likely that you may not be equivalent to something without clinical data. So be careful that you align with what the predicate is if you're going down the 510K pathway. Intended users. Some products are used by professional healthcare users. Some products are used by laypersons. Some things are used by laypersons, but they're prescribed by a professional healthcare giver that trains you how to use the device before you leave the doctor's office. And then some things are also used by, let's say, the sterile processing group at the hospital because they clean, wrap, and disinfect the devices and sterilize them and then send them back to the OR. So you have multiple user groups in those cases. So you might have multiple intended users depending on the use case. You might have a device that can be used for a lot of different things. So you might have multiple use cases. This is not a contest to see how many intended users I can come up with as a list. You don't get bonus points. What you get is to do extra work. So short and sweet. Besides, marketing 101, if you laser focus on a very tight market, it becomes easier to sell the product. So my favorite group, pediatrics. If you pick a pediatric population, you do clinical studies in that population, you get a free 510K submission because it's pediatric only, or you get a free de novo because it's pediatric only. So laser focus in on an intended user or intended patient population and make things that are user friendly and patient friendly. One of my favorite ones here is like when you're trying to read these instructions, like the little tiny print on the saline solution for contact lenses, and they've got it in 6-point font, and you don't have your contacts in. It's really hard to read. That's an ergonomics issue. So make it suitable for the intended user in the intended use environment. So is it going to be used in the dark? Is it going to be used in the ICU? Is it going to be used on an ambulance? And don't go crazy with the conditions for use thing either. That's not a contest to see who can come up with the most use environments. Professional healthcare facility, that's 1. Home use, that's 2. Ambulatory environment, that's 3. um, IV, a lab, um, what is it called? A CLIA lab. So those are examples. It's just a bullet point. You just need bullet points for this. The conditions of use: home use, professional healthcare facility, ambulatory use, and CLIA lab. Those would be your four different types of environments that would be typical to see under conditions of use. And you don't have to have all of them. You only have to have one. So you decide what it is. Can it be more than one? Yes, but every single one you have, you got to do testing for that other environment. And some of those, like ambulatory, some might even be some particular standards you have to pass for electrical safety. So be careful. Next section, principles of the operating device. So principles of operation of the device. I have a lot of blue text in here for software as a medical device because the FDA has come back and said, we want to understand how your software works. We want to understand the algorithm. And they want it in the device description, not just in your software description. So be prepared for that. You're going to put more detail in the software description than you put in your device description, but give them a couple paragraphs explaining how the software works so they understand it. If you don't have software, this might be a shorter section, but you want to explain how it works. So the basic principles of operation, and sometimes the information you need or hints to it can be found in the regulation for the product classification. So look up the product classification, click on the regulation button. It'll send you over to the eCFR. So you go into that, you type in the regulation number and find out, oh, that's how this device is supposed to work. So that might be very helpful to you to go there. This is an area where more of our technical customers, people that are biomedical engineers and people that are doctors, the inventor, founder, the CTO, they're great at answering this section. Once again, I'm not trying to get my PhD in your product. I'm just trying to understand what principles of operation. Does it work by gas power, pneumatic? Does it work under a hydraulic? Does it work under mechanical? How do I control it? Things like that. Okay, next section, novel features. I put this in here because when I originally created the template, we were trying to make this work for both Europe and the US. But we do a lot more US submissions than we do of European submissions. So delete this section, novel features, if you are doing just the US submission. If you're doing a European submission, a de novo or a PMA, fine, leave it in there. But this is not a marketing application. You're not trying to get a special award for a device design. You're trying to show how it's the same if you're doing a 510K. So delete novel features if you're doing a 510K. Just delete the section. Don't think about it too hard. Next section, functional elements. Okay, let's say I have a catheter. Well, I might have a cap on the catheter. I might have a needle on the catheter. I might have a hub on the catheter. I might have a lure lock. I might have an adhesive. I might have a tube. Each of those is a functional element. If I have a more complex device, I might have a sensor, I might have a controller, I might have a power supply. Those are examples of functional elements. I don't need the list of the 1,000 things that are on the printed circuit board. I just need to know that it has a power supply and a controller. That might be enough. Next, raw materials. This is also probably going to be covered in your biocompatibility section of your submission. But if you're not the biocompatibility expert, you might need this information for other reasons. So give them what are the raw materials that are used for your device. And we're most interested in the patient contacting or the indirect contacting components. And if you have a device that has indirect contact, so a gas pathway or a liquid pathway like blood or a drug being injected through a syringe and a needle, you might have to show a special view or diagram that shows the pathway of the gas or liquid, and you might color that a special color. So if it's a drug, it might be white or yellow or something like that. If it's air or water, it might be blue. But you're showing by using that color coding in the pathway, you're showing what components are wetted, touched by that gas or liquid, and then those components are subject to the indirect biocompatibility testing that you're going to do. Whereas the other components that make direct contact with the body are not part of that gas and liquid pathway. They're on the outside of the device. Those are the ones that have to do the direct biocompatibility testing. So you do different extractions of the two, and they have different types of body contact and different durations of contact. So you might have to do different testing. That's why that section is kind of important. So very important to explain what the raw materials are, the type of contact, duration of contact. And yes, that information is duplicated in your biocompatibility section, but that biocompatibility section is not in a pre-STAR. It's only in the eSTAR. So if you're doing a pre-STAR, this section is really helpful. And you might be able to take this information and copy and paste it into your eSTAR later. Copy and paste, not cut and paste. Copy and paste. Don't delete it from this. It's still helpful to people. Next section is accessories. So everybody struggles with this one. They can't decide what's an accessory and what's not. So show me pictures of how your device is going to be used. Show me videos of how your device is going to be used. Think of other things that are needed. We're not saying that you have to submit testing for these other accessories, but you might have to identify the 510K. And where we run into problems is when companies are European or in another country and they have it approval in their country for that accessory, but not approval in the US or no clearance in the US. So then they have to include it in this submission because it's only cleared in the other countries. It's not cleared in the US. So sometimes that happens. So keep that in mind. That even happens for software as a medical device. We have, like if you had an algorithm for arrhythmia detection for an ECG software tool, you might have some of those accessories also are software as a medical device and they have to be included. So next section here, and it doesn't have to be a 510K, it could be a PMA or a de novo, but not likely. Next, configurations and variants. So this section confuses people because they're like, yeah, it duplicates a lot of the information in the list of devices. Yes, it does. You might only have one configuration variant. Then just say that. We only have one configuration. Done. One sentence. Really easy. But if you have a kit, you might just point them to, in the system kit components accessories section, we have a diagram and a list. So both the previous section on accessories and this section on configurations and variants, if you do a really good job of the attachments that are optional because they're gray on the left-hand side, you could delete those two sections. Or better yet, you would say, see system kit components and accessories section of the pre-STAR or of the submission. It's right at the very end of the device description section. It's just a little add-on that says yes or no, you have them. And then, so if you have kits or accessories, you click yes, and then attach pictures or explanations or both, so you can have it as separate documents. Before the eSTAR, before the pre-STAR, we had to include it in the device description. Now you can delete them from there if you wish and put them as attachments. But if you're going to do that, I would recommend C system kit components attachment or C system kit component or C accessories attachment. So tell them there's an attachment down below rather than just not including the section at all. That would be my recommendation. And these will be mandatory for eSTAR, optional for pre-STARs. Okay, next section, technical specs. People struggle with this one, so I went a little bit wild on this one in my instructions. I said examples of technical specs include the weight of your device, the height of your device, the length of your device, the diameter of the device, the size of the guide wire, the size of the needle, the size of the introducer, the power requirements, the operating environment, temperature, humidity, altitude, data formats, and inputs. And that's just the start. You could have viscosity. You could have operating system. You could see display size. You could have the magnetic interference environment. And there are so many different things you could have as technical specs. And if you have multiple devices or modules of your device, components of your device, you might have one for each functional part of your system. So the technical specs do not tell me you have none. A ruler has specs. Even a mask has specs. Like you have level 1, level 2, level 3 surgical masks, isolation gowns. These are really simple devices. They have specs. Everything has a spec. Otherwise, you'd have no drawings and you'd have no specs. So you have to have specifications in your submission, and it has to be in the device description. And all your performance testing will be done to those technical specifications with acceptance criteria. So this is something you should be nailing down early. You can edit it, you can change it, you can update it, but you should be thinking about this really early, and it should not be missing from your device description. Please. Next section. Okay. Drawing, schematics, illustrations, photos, or figures. You can delete this section because they have buttons. Just like we had up above, right here for system kits, components, and accessories. You have the same thing now for pictures, illustrations, product packaging. So if you don't have your packaging yet, it's optional in the pre-STAR. You don't have to attach it. It's not optional in the 510K. So you're going to have to attach it for the 510K, but two different buttons. So keep those separate pictures, separate drawings, and we can have 27 different attachments. No problem. You want to have 27 different drawings for your device? Great. That gives me all kinds of detail. You probably don't need that much for a pre-STAR, but there's no harm in having that much detail. But this is where you attach it. You can delete this section and just have it all in the attachments instead. We're almost done here. 2 more sections. So similar in previous generations of the device. Please listen and read carefully. Similar devices would be predicates. So if you're doing a 510K, you can't tell me you don't have any similar devices. I know your device is novel. I know it's the best thing since sliced bread, but it has to have something that's similar to if you're submitting a 510K. If you're submitting a de novo or a PMA, I stand corrected. Your device is not similar to other devices. It's so novel, it requires a de novo or a PMA. But then you're also not a novice and you don't need my help filling out this form, right? So if you need my help and you're going down the 510K pathway, you have similar devices. Figure out what they are or ask us to help you find them. And we can help you find them. Previous generations of the device, most of the time for our clients, because we work with a lot of startups, they don't have previous generations. However, if you are in another country and you have approval or market authorization in that country, that's what we mean by previous generations. If you are doing a redesign or improvement or some sort of change to an existing product, then previous generations are the ones that you use as a predicate. They're your previous version of your device, and you're doing a device modification. Most people that are doing that don't have problems with that question, but this question, just everybody seems to say, we don't have anything similar, and they leave this section blank. I'm like, this is where you tell me what your predicates are. This is where you tell me that you have CE marking already. That's important information you know at the very beginning of the product, so I don't waste a bunch of time. So if you have CE marking, you have UKCA, you have TGA approval, you have a Canadian license, please indicate that. That will help me a lot. In the last section, why do we have this section? Because throughout the entire pre-STAR, eSTAR, for a 510K submission, they have a bunch of sections. What are the special control requirements and how do you meet them? If there are no special controls, you put NA, there are no special controls. So if there are no special controls, then you can use this little sentence down here that I have in green for you. There are no applicable product special controls guidance documents available for the device. Sometimes some of the more recent de novos will have a special controls list of requirements right in the regulation themselves. So if that's the case, then you have to go to the regulation, not a guidance document. So if it's not in the regulation and there is no guidance document, then you probably don't have special controls. The eSTAR or pre-STAR no longer tells you what the guidance document is. It used to. Now you have to go to the product classification page. You type in the 3-letter product classification, and that will tell you. And once again, I have put the information in here about the RTA, so we'll delete that. And we have references to the old version, so we'll delete that. So we've cleaned that up a bit. But if your device has a guidance document or special controls. You'll either find it in the regulation or they'll list the guidance under the product classification. So if you have multiple applicable product classifications, 3-letter product codes, type in each one of those as the primary just to see if there's a guidance document, and do that in the product classification database on the FDA website, and it'll tell you, and then you know that that's applicable. If you don't know how to do that, we do that all the time, and it only takes a second, and I can even probably do it in your 30-minute free meeting with me. So please fill in this section to the best of your ability, but if you don't know how to do it, this is an easy one for us. And that completes our device description template, and I am a little bit ahead of schedule. It took me a half hour instead of an hour. So if you have any questions about this, please put it in the comments down below this video. This video will be the video that everybody looks at on how to fill this in, and they'll go to our form, they'll fill in their name and their email address, they'll download the template, and you'll have all kinds of questions. Look at the questions in the comments below the video so I don't have to answer it 4 million times. I probably will, and I'll probably add comments and add to this over time so it's more clear. But I thought this would help everybody if I went through this line by line, how to fill in each section, and I reorganized it a little bit and took out the confusing links to the RTA guidance that is no longer applicable. So this version here will be the download that you get, and if we make updates, you'll get the updated version. It'll have a new date on it. Instead of 5/9/2025, it'll be some other date. But this is the section, this is how it's set up, and if you have any suggestion for improvement, I'll do another video. Okay? Have a great day, and please share the link with everybody so they can download this and watch the video. Bye-bye.